Welcome to the Healthcare Security Cast, the podcast dedicated to healthcare security, safety, and emergency management. If you are involved with a healthcare security program or desire to be, this podcast is for you. Join the conversation as we discuss the issues that matter to healthcare security professionals while leveraging the expertise of healthcare security thought leaders and experts in personal development. And now, here's your host, Brian Hamilton.
Welcome to episode 127 of the Healthcare Security Cast. Today, I'm joined by Morgan Saunders as we discuss line of duty deaths and different staffing models for healthcare security programs. Now, before we get started, I want to announce the winner of the Axis Communications HSC giveaway. And the winner of that contest was Sam Obregon, who is the first two-time winner of an HSC giveaway. Now, Sam has opted to take the IHSS membership and gift it to another individual. Sam, I appreciate everything you do, and I appreciate you taking that step to grow the IHSS. So congratulations, Sam. I also want to announce a new giveaway, and this one is courtesy of Eric Clay's generosity. So this giveaway is a $100 discount to the IHSS AC&E. So if you're going to be attending the 2022 annual conference and exhibition in Reno, Nevada, there is an opportunity to win that $100 discount. In order to win, text CLAY, that's C-L-A-Y, to 647-372-2042. Again, that's CLAY, C-L-A-Y, to 647-372-2042. And lastly, I just want to thank and acknowledge our sponsors and collaborators, starting with 3D Network Technology. 3D Network Technology, reliability is our core value. Visit www.3dnetworktechnology.com. And Genetech, delivering security strategies for healthcare. Visit genetec.com. And Axis Communications. Visit axis.com to learn more. That's AXIS.com. Also want to thank the Change Execution Group and 360 Life Transformations, as well as Canadian Security and Omnigo Software. And now, let's get into today's show. Welcome to the Healthcare Security Cast. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by Morgan Saunders. Morgan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Brian. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks for joining us. Now, I'm going to start off by giving us all a chance to get to know you a bit better. And I'm going to do that by asking, who is Morgan Saunders?
Great. Thanks, Brian. So Morgan Saunders has not got to his position in a direct way. So I come from the fire service background and also the banking background. You're like, oh my gosh. So I joined a healthcare sector in 2005 out of the banking industry, and had an opportunity to join Holzer Health System in the maintenance shop, and got to come on to be a painter, just basic job, and kind of work my way up through. I've been in the fire service for over 20 years. And so with that element and the emergency preparedness piece of the Joint Commission, I was able to work up through Holzer into many different management roles, and working in emergency management, had an opportunity to work with the security team starting in 2007. And just kind of flourished from there. And I got an opportunity with a merger of two organizations, now known as Holzer Health System, to be the director of safety. In 2018, I got an opportunity to take on the facilities side of Holzer. And so today, I am the director of safety and facility operations. I'm also the safety officer for the organization. So that's kind of my career path. And so it's not necessarily traditional as some people may see or say, but it's been a heck of a road. And I love working with Holzer and working for them, and working with my teams. One saying I like to use is Ernie Johnson always said that you want to have a get-to job. And Ernie is on NBA and TNT. And so I get to do this every day, and I get to spend time with my guys and my team, and it's just rewarding every day to come to work and make sure our environment is safe and secure for our patients. So that's kind of me.
And that's really cool because the thing is too, you've had so much diversity in your experience. Like again, starting off in banking and then working all different positions in the hospital, starting off as a painter. You've had a chance to see a lot of the operations and really, I guess I'm sure it's been a learning process pretty much the entire time. It seems like everything's just been new for you, and you've just had to keep really growing yourself as you've moved through your career.
Yeah, so absolutely. So I got an opportunity to really start from the ground up in the facilities and safety department and grow. Holzer has given me a lot of opportunities and I never said no. I had an executive tell me one time, he said, never turn down an opportunity to learn. And so I've had an opportunity to learn many different pieces of our facilities department, many different pieces of our safety and emergency management and security department. And I learn every day. My staff teaches me every day. And I'm thankful for that and get an opportunity to really try to create something here at Holzer that can lead us into the future.
Right. The other thing too, recently you earned your CHPA, so congratulations on that. I know it's not necessarily an easy endeavor. There's a lot that goes into that as well.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. And so, my CHPA, that was a goal of mine for 2021, and I got an opportunity. Holzer has been allowed me to kind of. They've invested in me, and I've got a chance to invest in myself. And so went down to the IHSS conference there in October, and got an opportunity to do that and passed first time. So I'm super happy with that, and see what that leads me down.
Awesome. Now, the other thing too, you kind of touched on were some of the people who've helped you along the way, and you kind of mentioned them indirectly. But who are some of the people who have served as mentors for you?
Yeah, so within Holzer, two people that actually, I'm gonna use three, three that within Holzer that I feel like have really helped me pave my way. The first one, and I'll use them kind of in chronological order. Tom Childs. Tom Childs was a chief operations officer at Holzer Medical Center, which is the old entity of Holzer. And Tom was my first executive that I got an opportunity to work with directly. And he really bestowed on me as to never turn down an opportunity and really paved my way. He was a no nonsense leader. He really didn't tolerate a lot, but he also was very fair. And so he gave me my first opportunity to be a leader in Holzer, and I'm super happy with that. He kind of helped me start my path. The other leader is John Cunningham. John was the chief administrative officer with Holzer when I became Holzer in 2012, and he kind of paved my way to be the director of safety. Again, he told me never turn down an opportunity to learn something. And so Tom and John were both kind of similar leaders, and John was actually my mentor up until November when he retired. He was my coach and my mentor, and he really helped me refine my management skills sometimes. And so I'm glad that I got the opportunity to serve under him. And my current leader is Lisa Hackworth. Lisa is a very fair but firm leader also, and she knows what her direct reports need to flourish. And so she does a great job, really bringing out the best in her leaders and best in me personally. So those are kind of the three mentors I've had within Holzer. Outside of Holzer, I have a good friend and also is a mentor for me is Troy Johnson. He's the chief deputy for the Gadoury County Sheriff's Office. And him and I are friends, but we're also colleagues. And he helps me mentor things. And he's my sounding board. When I've had a good day or a bad day, I always, give him a call and just share with what I got going. And he always has a very good insight into, how I should maybe progress forward or give me kudos or whatever. So three or four people there that really help me get through things.
Awesome. And thank you for sharing that. Now, the thing I kind of want to transition to as well is, kind of the main thing that we wanted to discuss today, and that's line of duty deaths. And, it's obviously I can see why it's a topic that, that's number one, an important topic to discuss, and something that you've really taken an interest in wanting to share about. So would you mind just sharing your thoughts on this topic?
Sure. So since 2018, I've lost two officers in the line of duty, and I want to say both their names because it's important to me. Phillip Pj Richmond was an officer that was here when I started working in security, got an opportunity to lead security. PJ was involved in a situation in the our Gallup police campus, and just had a really rough time with it, and actually had a heart attack and passed away the day after the event happened. And so, he has kind of left a legacy here. Everyone knew PJ, and he had been here about 10 years with Holzer. And so, when I had to go to the ER when the family called me, and it was tough. And the first time I had experienced that within this career at Holzer. And so the family's kind of looking to me like, how's Holzer going to help you? Can they help us? And what can we do that can help him and leave him a legacy? And it was just a lot of questions that really no one had really crossed here at Holzer, because when a staff member maybe passes away and they're working, it is different when you're in the public safety world and you're in security, because you're not police, we're not firefighters, and police and firefighters, if they die in the line of duty, they get benefits, whether from the state or from the federal government. And so it is different. And so there was a lot of questions and a lot of unanswered things that kind of went over the days of when we buried PJ. We didn't have a collar guard, and we didn't have, what security was going to do for his family during the services. And there was a lot of questions unanswered. So I was very fortunate to have a police department at the time. And so he was not a police officer in this setting. He had been a police officer in the past. So I was able to kind of lean on, some of their expertise, and they helped me get through that from, doing presenting the flag and doing collar guard. But I think the important thing was the benefits. There's, of course, he had life insurance, and that's part of that. But there was no necessary recognition or no benefit to being a security officer in a healthcare setting or any setting that could help him and his family going forward. Being a firefighter, I know that if a firefighter dies in the line of death, the state or the federal government helps the families. So there's just not that in security. If he would have been a police officer, a commissioned police officer through an agency, then he probably would have. So it's just I think it's something that's important that we need to at least consider. And I don't know what avenue or what pathway we go down, or what agency can help us pave that way. But I think that's important. The other officer I lost this year in October, Cliff Thomas. Cliff Thomas was in foot pursuit of a patient that was what we call pink slipped, or it was mental health slip, and he collapsed and died of a heart attack also. And so, same situation. His family's looking to me. He's got 3 kids. How can Holzer help us any way at all? And we lost our dad, and we lost, we lost our income, and it was, again, a tough time. And so when Cliff passed, I said, I'm going to try to take this as a goal of mine to somehow get in place where if a security officer would die, whether not necessarily in healthcare, look at retail, look at casinos. I mean, there's security forces all in every industry, and we've got to somehow protect those officers that put their life on the line, sometimes the same as a police officer does, same as a firefighter does, and be able to provide them some kind of benefit if they would die in the line of duty.
Oh, and yeah, I can appreciate that, and sorry for both of those losses. It is always tough when you do build that rapport with somebody, especially somebody that you brought into your team, and they do die in the line of duty. It is always a really challenging thing to deal with, especially when you factor in all of the challenges with with their family as well that you kind of alluded to. What are some of the, and I know obviously you have some ideas around this, but I guess what are some of the things that that you've kind of done to try to take this challenge head on and really establish something for those security professionals, for their families that they leave behind in these situations?
Yeah, so internal to Holzer, I've had some dialogue with our human resources department, and trying to determine what can we do and what does labor law allow, what does our policies allow, and you starting that pathway is going to be a little bit difficult, and trying to sculpt that path outside of Holzer. Haven't had a really opportunity to do a lot. I mentioned it a few times to some of the board members of the IHSS, and they said, good question, but really haven't got a chance to really dive into it. So I'd love to have more dialogue, maybe at the board level of IHSS or ASIS, and see what ideas we can generate, and what possible we can do. Again, I'm pretty early in this, Brian. It's more of a brainstorming type piece right now. But yeah, I haven't got a chance to do a lot, but I love to hear more. I love to see if other people have had the same challenges. I think within my department, the biggest thing is for us, and this may be small in some people's eyes, but it's kind of big for the families, is as a collar guard. And I know there are agencies that have collar guards that are healthcare based. And so if you can show the respect that officer has earned by being a member of the team, and doing, a collar guard, and presenting the flag and that kind of thing, that goes a long way for the family. And it shows that you have much respect for that officer. And but so we're working on that. I want to be able to form my own collar guard. I've had some employees talk about that, and we hope that we can get that in place. So again, that may be small, but I think it's big for the family.
No, definitely. And I could definitely see something like that going a long way in a difficult time. Now, the other thing that we want to talk about as well is just, you alluded to having a police department previously, and we want to talk about just some of the staffing models that are out there, and, some of the successes that you've seen with the staffing model that you use. So obviously, I'd like to have a conversation about this because we discussed this before, but I've worked in a lot of different staffing models myself. So I've got to really see the benefits and the challenges that come with all of them. But yeah, can we just get your thoughts on some of the staffing models and what works well?
Yeah, so I started formulating a staffing model that was a hybrid. So we had security and police, and what we tried to do is work. And for our organization here at our main campus, it's about 400,000 square feet. So a smaller building in relation to some others. So we had one police officer and one security officer on most shifts, and so I think we've worked out very well. And there are things that security officers can do that maybe a police officer can't without having, probable cause. And so that worked out very well. So a hybrid model, I think, works. Unfortunately, I don't have a police department today. There was some financial challenges, and so we don't have that today. We have security today only. And so we're still back to a model where we have two officers every shift, and we are all in-house. We do not contract anything. I feel like there's some quality that we can drive with having in-house officers that are Holzer employed and they wear a Holzer uniform. But anyway, I think the hybrid model works if you're going to do a police and security. Try to partner those officers together and meld their cultures together, because it can be a little bit different too, being a police officer and also being a security officer.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when I think about some of the hybrid approaches that I've been a part of, again, because we don't really, there's not really a situation, at least where I am in Canada, where we have police. I know in Alberta, we do have some peace officers who, special constables who basically serve in that capacity as well. But again, they have those special constables and the security team as well to supplement that. So, that's another model that I've seen that works pretty well also.
Yeah. So in the state of Ohio, that's saying that you receive your commission from the Attorney General's office. So that is a special commission. And basically what we had to do was have an agreement with the local authority. So most of our organizations, that was the county sheriff's office. And so if the sheriff signed the agreement saying, yep, we understand that there's a police department at Holzer, and we understand, they're going to be responding, handling the crime pieces of what happens on the Holzer grounds, they would sign that a mutual aid agreement, and we would actually have a GL contract. So we would go back and forth. They would understand what we're doing. We would contract with them to do some of the GL contracts. But our officers were commissioned through the state of Ohio and not necessarily through the local agency. And again, that worked out very well. I think that would still be here today if we wouldn't have had our financial challenges, and probably be bigger and better than it ever was.
Oh, for sure. Now, question I have for you: have you worked with any, I guess, contract security at all?
Yeah, so I have a small element of contract security. We have some ambulatory physician practice buildings that are good in size, pretty big size. Some of them are over 100,000 square feet. Our contract service is the security for those buildings after hours, and so they do a great job for us in that respect. And they patrol the grounds. They protect those assets that are inside of those buildings, and also they are kind of our eyes and ears. If there is a water leak, if there is a fire alarm goes off, they're our eyes and ears on the ground at the building when something unfolds, and they're able to help us diagnose what's going on and then send resources their way. And so they have a very important part, and they really do that well. And so I'm proud to say we have that contract services specifically for a specific mission.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit more, but there's definitely some strengths that you can leverage from the contract providers as well. Now, one thing that you did mention was the being able to drive quality a bit more, from an in-house perspective. Can we do a deeper dive into that?
Sure. So I think, in my opinion, and I'm sure there's a lot of opinions out there, is if I can be right there with my guys, and the thing that goes back to being a transformational leader, is be there with my guys. And when I say guys, it's guys and gals. I've got females, and they do a wonderful job. So, and I tell them that they know when I say guys, that's all of them together.
Right.
If I can be right there with them on the front lines and show them what my expectation is, I think that's important. So they're leaders right there with them. And I can say, hey, here's how here's what I think would have been a little bit better. Here's what we need to be doing. If we've got a situation going on in our emergency department or up on our OB department, I can be right there with them. I'm not there with them every time, but if I do respond with my officers periodically, and that helps me kind of push them where I want them to be, whether they're going to do an approach differently or whether they're going to handle a situation differently, or how they're going to react. And so I think that pushes the quality down to the officer. Having a contract service can get a little muddy when it comes to some of those things, at least in my opinion. If I would have a contract employee there, they're not really mine. And so if I want to see them do something different, then I'm going to have to go to their leader and have that leader be my sounding board and be my eyes and ears on the ground. And so I think that could get a little bit muddy if they're not owning what I want them to own, then the officer's not going to necessarily own it. So I think having a proprietary department is where I can go right to the officer and say, here's what I think you need to do better. Here's what you've done great with. Give them that positive, and also give them some coaching. I think that's a direct line to them, really drives quality within the officer.
Yeah, absolutely. I could, I definitely see your point there, and I can appreciate that. Now, conversely, again, because obviously just being conversational, I want to make sure that we highlight both sides of it as well. A lot of it, I would say, is leadership driven, and obviously the in-house portion is working great for you, because you have you're a good leader, really at the end of the day, or it wouldn't work. Now, I think with the contract part, in a situation like you're describing, there really needs to be number one, good relationship with the contract provider. So again, every structure is going to be different. So you have a client service manager, an account manager who's overseeing your account specifically. There needs to be good leadership there, and you need to have a good relationship, and that's going to eliminate a lot of those challenges. I think conversely, and again, every company is different as well, but I'll highlight one specifically because I worked for them and I got to see it firsthand. But in terms of training, Paladin Security, PalAmerican, I guess if you're south of the border, they have a really strong training program. The LMS program, I remember, and I worked there years ago, so it was pretty robust back then. I think there was like 40 courses that were available just for learning management. A lot of them were healthcare focused, but again, because they're a company who covers, like every company, they do cover a lot of different verticals. There was a lot of training available, but I thought that was something that was really helpful. Again, just even in my development, but in terms of being able to assign training to my team and them getting a good, getting some good insights there. And I think the other thing too that you can really leverage is the expertise of the individuals within those contract providers as well. So again, I mentioned Paladin and PalAmerican, Tony York, right? The guy who wrote the textbook that we all studied from to get our CHPA. Having a resource like that from a contract provider, and if I think of Allied Universal, you have Lisa Terry, and again, I'm not going to be able to name everybody, but Lisa Terry, John Demming, Jeff Young, these are all individuals who are going to be a benefit to you, especially when you're a smaller hospital, or there's just certain things that you haven't had experience with. That's one of the other strengths of having a contract provider, because again, they're going to be able to help you navigate some of those challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. So if Lisa Terry was going to be my leader of my department, I'd be all over it. Would not be a problem. John Demming or Tony York, any of those guys and gals that are really have it together and doing a good job providing services to their organizations. It's tough, being in Southeast Ohio, that those type of those talents, I'm not sure that they're totally here. And so that's tough. And those are big markets, and there's a lot of talent within those markets. And that's another topic probably within itself, is the talent pool that rural America has. And, trying to get those talents to come and work for you and work in your organization or your department is tough. I have a stack of applications, and unfortunately, I struggle getting a good officer right now. So you're right, Brian. The leader does make the team in some respect. Make sure they're carving out what the expectations are. But it's tough. That's tough getting a leader at that big of a caliber. High caliber leaders hard to get sometimes.
Right. And you know what, even to your point now, as I'm just thinking about it, because again, it really depends on a lot of factors, what's going to work best. Now, I think so I'll just kind of give a little bit of context here. People assume right away, just being Canadian, that people assume I'm from Toronto. I'm kind of in that area. I'm about an hour outside of Toronto. But if you drive for another 2 hours past me, one of my colleagues, one of my good friends, Dave Gadoury, he works at a hospital there. So it's again a bit more of a rural area as well. And he kind of had the same challenge. He had there's specifically some talent related challenges, and to kind of stabilize things, he converted to an in-house program. I want to say it was about a year and a half ago now. And he's had some great success with that. So again, there's a lot of those situations, like specifically with yours, where there's not as deep of a talent pool to choose from. It definitely helps being able to bring your program in-house in those situations. Yeah, and again, it varies. Like I have a lot of these discussions where people are really strong one way, and so for example, someone who's like, yeah, I would only do in-house is the way to go, or conversely. Where people will say, I could only ever work with a contract program. There's no way I would, want to bring my program in-house. But I think much to what you've shown us here, it really depends on the circumstances of your specific facility, your organization. There's not really a one size fits all.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I think every organization really needs to evaluate it and continue to evaluate it, see if it makes sense for them. Again, you're right. Some organizations really want to have an outsourced type environment. There is sometimes less headaches, and from a mid-level leader, there would be less headaches. If I had an officer problem that was contracted, I just have the contract company handle it. Versus, if I want to really try to coach somebody, I'd really want to try to do that myself. So really, it's very specific, but evaluation is important. And we evaluate it, but I think it really works for us. And so, that's kind of the way we're going to progress forward. But things can change. You never know what the environment's going to drive.
Yeah, exactly. And to the point that you had, there's less headaches. Sometimes there's less headaches. Sometimes there's more. And sometimes the headaches are just different.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
The one thing too, when you have a contract provider that's really focused on meeting the requirements of the agreement. The one thing is, you don't have to, when somebody calls in sick, it's not your challenge, it's not your problem. It is your problem at the end of the day, but the contract provider is going to solve it some way, somehow.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just things like that. It's kind of funny though. I'm just kind of thinking of some of the examples that I've worked with, and so there was one situation I was in specifically where I was a leader within a team. I reported to an in-house manager, and I was a contracted leader who managed a kind of a hybrid team that was very deep into a transition from in-house to contract. So it was a kind of a split staffing model where you had people doing the exact same job. One, I'd have a shift where there's two officers, one was contract, one was proprietary. So that, that created a unique set of circumstances in itself. Two people doing the same job, one was being paid significantly more. There was, challenges on how you're managing either one of them. So yeah, anybody in those roles, I felt your pain. So I know some of the challenges from kind of both sides.
Yeah, back to the hybrid model though, that can be a conflict because the security officer is going to make less than a police officer. Mm-hmm. And so trying to figure out that, and I guess that's when I said trying to meld those cultures, understanding what each other's role is, and trying to work, because they are basically doing the same job. One's just maybe wearing a different patch, a different color uniform, and carrying a firearm versus security officers not. And so that's also a challenge in a hybrid model of having different pay scales. If your organization has chose to have different pay scales for a police officer versus security officer, that can be challenging.
Yeah, I think the one thing too that's a strength of that is actually provides a career path. And for someone who doesn't want to be an armed police officer, they have the ability to make that choice as well, right? Like if they're happy being a security officer in that environment, and the compensation that they get is adequate, it just gives them more options as well.
Yeah. So from a career path, we did have security officers that did go be police officers. And so that if they start out as being a security officer in our organizations, security officer one, almost no experience, going to learn the way, going to learn what they need to do being a security officer, and then start to progress up to a security officer two. For us, that's a certification through the IHSS. We have a in-house, the 20-hour firearms class, state of Ohio puts on. And so it gives them a progression. And then ultimately, if they want to go be a police officer, we have a technical college here, and they can go do that on evenings and about 8 months and being a police officer. So we try to support progression of their career. And that really helped when we had both police and security. Is it gave them a goal. It gave them somewhere they could get to and make more money over the time and progress up through. And so that's a positive. I've tried to keep elements of that within my team now. We still have different levels of security officer depending on what their education is. And that's working. And we've had a lot of officers become certified through IHSS, and hopefully we'll have more.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another thing that's important too. And I think a lot of leaders don't really consider that either, but it's like, obviously if this was the situation for you, it sounds like that would be a consideration, is having, dictating some of the training that is provided to those contract officers coming in. The other thing too that I think of, and this has kind of come to light because of the pandemic. I remember when the pandemic first started, I was working for a security guard service provider. And that first week of the pandemic, it was, it was crazy. So one of the clients I was working with, a really good client, I enjoyed working with them, but they had, it was 7 or 8 facilities. Their acute care facilities were proprietary, and then they leveraged us at some of the other ones, and then for patient watches as well. Now, when the pandemic, at the start of the pandemic, right off the bat, there was a requirement for an additional 2,000 hours of coverage weekly. So that's, and when I come back to, and the reason why I mention that is from an in-house perspective, it's already difficult. There's already labor challenges. And if you had to add 2,000 hours a week of proprietary coverage, it's going to be a challenge. It was a challenge from a contract standpoint. It was really hard to get those shifts covered. But, it allows the managers in those in-house facilities to really focus on dealing with the challenges at hand, and leaves it on a contract provider to really support that program. And it had great communication with that internal team as well, and really good collaboration. So that was kind of another benefit. I think the other thing I've seen too since then is that there were some leaders who I had spoken with who were very adamant that they would only ever use in-house services, and they've recognized, and a lot of them now have actually signed contracts with some security companies, just to make sure that they actually have that backup staff if they keeping their in-house program, but for situations like this, they actually have a contract in place now. So if something does happen and they need to ramp up, they're able to do that. And that's one thing that I've seen change in terms of how people have managed their programs before the pandemic.
Yeah, so that's a good point, Brian. I think the scalability of a contract service is definitely a positive. If you, like, for your example, it's trying to scale up 2,000 hours a week, that would be impossible for an in-house. You're trying to post positions and interview and hire and do all those things would be tough. Even getting positions approved is tough, especially within the pandemic, and not necessarily early in the pandemic, but at least the middle of the pandemic in 2019-20. Financials were tight, and trying to get a position approved, it would have been tough. And so having the scalability of a bigger organization, i.e. Allied or PalAmerican or whoever, that would have been a positive, because they have all those resources that they already have in other places that they could bring in to scale up if they need to, and then scale back down and put it back where they were. So that's definitely a positive in my mind for a contract service.
Yeah, the one thing that I see as a challenge, and again, it kind of comes down to leadership, is that a lot of times when these contracts are being developed, or the RFPs being put together, I see a lot of situations where the security leader doesn't really have the opportunity to give their insight as to what they want included in that RFP, and that's kind of that's one thing that's going to have a significant impact as well. So
I absolutely. I think that's a huge point. Having those KPIs within an agreement is important. Having those expectations in the agreement's important. And then the communication between the in-house leader and the contract leader, I think that's got to be a huge element within that, and make sure we're both living on those KPIs, living on those expectations, and understanding them.
The other piece too, if somebody's coming into and again, just keep thinking of different examples here, but somebody's coming into healthcare from a different vertical, or even from a different background altogether. I spoke to a guy recently who came to healthcare security from a completely different background. This is another area where having a good contract provider is going to be of a benefit to you coming in and actually trying to get acclimated with the role and the environment in general, because it is very different from anything else that you'll do.
Oh, it's definitely different. I came from the banking industry. It's completely different.
Oh man. Yeah. So Morgan, we covered quite a bit here. Is there anything else that you'd like to share, or anything that we didn't touch on that you wanted to?
No, I mean, not really, Brian. I appreciate you inviting me on, and I love listening to your podcast. Keep them coming, and looking forward to what 2022 and the future holds for healthcare security. So,
absolutely. Now, as we start to wrap up, do you have a special message for the healthcare security cast community?
There was a saying that I have posted here on my desk, and I think it's held true for at least the last 2 years. And the saying is, "Uncomfortable makes us grow." We have been in uncomfortable times, but we're growing from it. I hope everyone professionally or personally is growing from it some way, and I think that's important to keep and kind of keep in front of you. We're all uncomfortable. We're all doing things we've never wanted to do or don't want to do, and we want to stop doing it. But unfortunately, there will be a time in the day that we will be able to stop. For example, wearing masks or locking down our buildings, or having to wear PPE all day long. It is uncomfortable, but we're growing from it. We're going to learn from it, and I'm looking forward to the future of understanding things better and keeping going. So that's kind of my message to just remember, uncomfortable makes us grow.
Absolutely. Now, Morgan, for everyone who's listened who wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, so I appreciate that, Brian. My email address is probably the best way. Email is Morgan, MORGAN .Saunders, SAUNDERS @Holzer, HOLZER.org. So Morgan.Saunders at Holzer.org. That's my email here at the hospital. And if anyone has any questions, I'd love to hear more about line of duty deaths. If anyone has any type of ideas around that, I'd love to hear from that and see if we can keep that going.
Awesome stuff. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Morgan. And I definitely appreciate it. And I enjoyed the conversation as well.
All right. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it.
The Healthcare Security Cast is available on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music and Audible, and many other platforms as well. Check out our link tree on your computer or mobile device. And this can be found at linktree/Brian Hamilton. That's linktr.ee/Brian, BRINE Hamilton. Again, that's linktr.ee/Brian Hamilton. Or if it's easier, send me a text at 647-372-2042. That's 647-372-2042. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have or share any links you may be looking for. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, take care and stay safe.